Thank you so much, Nikki. You are a great friend. Congratulations for the baby coming, and yeah, it's a great. We always say that it's about people first, no, people, projects, and then companies. You have been a great friend. In the serendipities, no, that we met many years ago, and we have kept. Creating things and in contact, always connecting us with very inspiring people. Thank you, everybody that have found some time in your busy days to connect today from different parts of the world to the Next Horizon Tour of 2025. I have prepared few slides, more to structure the conversation. Very different of what I normally do, to be honest. I stayed most of the night awake creating them because I wanted to have more like a dialogue a little bit about the accelerating uncertainty, that we are all living nowadays, and that I'm not going to compare it to the COVID, no, on 2020, but this one is very different, of course, in many different aspects. And I'm positive in the way that I believe this is going to bring a lot of opportunities. But I wanted to structure a little bit of dialogue with you today. I feel that is good, to put some numbers and to try to understand why things are happening the way that are happening, and then structure the dialogue on how we see those things actually as great propellers of growth for all of us that we are very passionate about design. We are now in a time that we believe that design has been a little bit like watering down a little bit for the past years, and now we have an opportunity, for design to really have a main stage in a lot of the solutions that we're going to be building and bringing to life from these challenges of uncertainty that we're going to be talking about. So I hope that it's useful for you and that opens at the end dialogue. Any questions that you have at the end, I would love to hear them and to go through them together. Sounds great. All right, let's share my presentation very quick here. Let's see. Hello. Okay, do you see screen that says uncertainty is accelerating? Everybody? Yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Good. All right, perfect. So, yeah, let's talk about uncertainty and its acceleration lately, and how I think we have an opportunity all as professionals, as teams, and also as companies to have a new innovation playbook. I'm going to do a quick intro. For those that you don't know me, I see Marco and few familiar faces, so that's great. And I'm going to then dig down a little bit more on the numbers behind this uncertainty to try to understand, why it's accelerating and what's a little bit behind. And then I'm going to get more on the positive side. So don't get scared in the number two when I share a lot of the data. But then I'm going to go deeper into the new innovation playbook that I believe that is going to be needed. For those that you don't know me, I have this quote from one of my former bosses and Beast Ninja that I love. That is, if you can be brilliant, at least be confusing. So I'm going to try to be, as I cannot be very brilliant, I'm going to try to be very confusing with a lot of the data I'm going to be sharing with you today. A quick intro. I've been living, as Nikki was mentioning, over 20 years right now outside of Spain. I'm originally from Madrid, but I've been living, a part of Madrid in Texas, living many years also in Boston, doing my undergrad in business. London, leading with Coca-Cola Company many innovation projects and digital projects for the European Union group. And then I moved to do a master's in California. I lived in LA for 3 years. Almost 13 years in San Francisco was a long time there. And I moved to New York like around 3 years ago, where I'm based now. We have offices in San Francisco and Madrid and Latin America, so it's kind of like easier to be kind of like in the middle. So it's a little bit the trajectory that I was telling you. The pictures that you see there is that I come from this mix of family that is like industrialist, more into glass business and into steel manufacturing. And then other part of the family more like in the artist side. Like my grandfather Federico was a great painter. So I kind of like have this kind of like a mix, and that's why probably I have this mix of business and industrial design in my DNA, having worked in consumer packaged good companies, UNICEF, where I started my career, and later in Telefonica. It's kind of like my DNA, so you know me. Regarding what I do today for living is I work co-founded Propelland. Propelland is a global strategy design and engineering firm. We basically help companies transform and grow. When we talk about growth, that is the consequence of transformation. And there are three transformations that we're going through. One is digital transformation. Second one is cultural transformation. And the third one is more on sustainability transformation and how sustainability becomes a growth engine for companies. No, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. When we say that we help companies transform and grow, we take this very seriously. It's about bringing, products, services, and new businesses actually to life completely from scratch in some cases, and other cases, an evolution of the businesses that our clients already have. This is a slide that I normally don't share. That is what is behind each of the projects is this bringing to life process, which is a lot of tinkering, it's a lot of making, it's a lot of mistakes, things that goes really wrong, some cases things that burn out and melt down. And what I like of this slide is that through these 12 years that we have been doing this together with our clients, what is very interesting as a team is that we have been building this kind of like library of possibilities. So now when we tackle a new project, a new challenge, we are able to do it in a way that is very informed regarding how viable and how desirable those solutions can actually be. So I think really that there's only one way of learning, that is, as we all know, is through execution and making mistakes, understanding that the mistakes is the learning path towards success. And we believe that design, it's important, and design, we design things that truly matter. And these are some examples, like what you see in the left is a medical device that you are able actually to have biometrics in remote, talking with nurses and with doctors in different remote areas, for example, of Spain. This is in over 150,000 households already. In the middle is an education platform that we have done for Latin America. And the third one is actually a device together with Nokia Bell Labs, that is the moonshot factory of Nokia, which is a device to help measure the health of the oceans, which is very important part actually of climate change, as you know. So this type of the design that matters type of approach and that we have. No, at the end is this intersection of strategy, design, and engineering. But there are these other three things that we see around us that are connecting. No, that is the human-centered data strategy, which is basically knowing who buys what, where, with which frequency, and most importantly, understanding the why. AI tools, Gen AI, Agentic AI, that is coming now very, very quick. Soon enough, it will be AGI. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then sustainability, especially from the angle of how we can actually find sustainability as a growth engine for our companies and our businesses. No, this is how we help clients. I'm not going to get through this, but basically you see there in the top, like vision and strategy, design and development, which is our core kind of like obsession. No, in order to make design that matters, you need to actually learn from the execution. You need to be bringing them to life. So as Nikki was commenting, our design studios are full of 3D printers and CNC machines, laser cut machines, this type of things. No, and everybody's building, tinkering, and doing things with their hands, not only with the brain, learning, no, by doing. And then tools and results, of course, as everybody is now tinkering and experimenting with AI and what is the change of ways of working. We have different offices in different parts of the world. We started in San Francisco 12 years ago, and it's important to have different offices in order to serve clients better. This is some of the companies that we have the privilege, creating and bringing to life with, and some of the verticals that we have most experience, basically consumer and retail, industrial groups, financial services. But anyway, what I wanted to talk more about is the uncertainty that we are all living that is actually accelerating, no? And there are five areas that are colliding or connecting. The first one is about economic factors. We're going to talk about each of these now in further detail. But we see the rising US tariffs, the impact of everything that is happening right now in the stock market, high interest rates. They're going to go for longer for sure. So the Federal Reserve here in the US is already saying that it's going to cut later and probably less than expected in 2025. And then the impact that this is going to have with the retaliation of all the tariffs, the impact that it's going to have in supply chain. So we know that technology advances, we see AI, everything that is happening with cybersecurity, social and workforce. I'm going to focus mainly on intergenerational reskilling and upskilling, which is kind of like the largest challenge and the biggest opportunity that, to be honest, we see as a team. There are talent shortages and, of course, talent attraction and retention challenges, but those are kind of like very interconnected to this cause or root of the challenge, which is intergenerational issues. And then geopolitical, I'm going to talk a little bit about the instability by wars, but more about some of data. And I'm not going to get so much into trade war uncertainty because it's very obvious of what's happening. And environmental issues, I'm going to try to concentrate more on the climate change impact and especially how we can operationalize as a growth engine and being part of the strategic agenda of companies. So if we get a little bit deeper down into economic factors, and again, a lot of data. I can share the deck later with Nick, and Nicky can share it with you. So don't worry about all the data. I'm going to go through it very quickly. But you can see that basically there has been a very big impact with the rising US tariffs that Donald Trump has been communicating with his team last week. There are many other ones spendings like the ones from, Canada, Mexico, and Russia that are expected to be communicated probably this week or next week. But the ones that have been communicated, as you see there, European Union 20%, China 34%, Japan 24%. We have Vietnam 46%, which is a huge one. Like one of our clients, for example, is Nike, Converse. It has a huge impact because a lot of fashion and shoes are being made actually in Vietnam. Korea 25%, Taiwan 32%, India 26%. Israel 17%. So it's already in 2.5 trillion impact in the US stock market. They say that maybe this week this could even double. We'll see. And then there are two issues here that are important to put in size. One is debt, and the second one is interest. For those of you that come more from the business side, no, the debt is that we're talking about an accumulated debt in the US of $36.2 trillion. This means that the US is right now adding to that almost $2 trillion per year. Which is the 3.2% of the GDP. This is the worst that has been historically since 1991. That was the Gulf War, for those that are older than I am. The second issue is about interest. We're talking about almost $1 trillion dollars in 2024 that the US had to pay in interest. We're talking that the expectation is that 2035, if things do not change, it's expected that it's going to go up to almost 2 trillion, $1.2 trillion. So just to put it in context, the annual budget of the US is $850 billion, and Medicare healthcare system here in the US is $839 billion. So just to put it in context, interest is already higher than actually the largest programs like defense or Medicare in the US. This is the reason why we see everything that is happening, not only with the tariffs, but everything that we are seeing right now about what's happening with Dodge and Elon Musk and the rest of the group of people and getting inside all the budgets and trying to cut them. As Ray Dalio talks about, how to cut the deficit, they are trying to cut a deficit of 3% because if they don't, in the next 5, 7 years, the US actually the size of the interest will be so big that it will be having a huge percentage impact on the GDP of the United States, which means that it's going to get less and less competitive. Now, one of the biggest challenges is that a lot of this debt is owned by China. Now, if we get down into high interest rates, which is important, is that the higher tariffs, as we are seeing, are going to have an impact on probably a higher inflation. The retaliation of the other countries are going to raise probably the price of a lot of the goods. So this could potentially, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I know that everybody's going to fight really hard, including myself, that this doesn't happen. But this means that we could enter into a recession at the end of 2025 or maybe 2026. This means that, from the two cuts that were more or less, predicted with a 4.33% that we are right now in interest rates in the US. Maybe we go to 4 cuts at the end of the year with a 3% in order to fight and avoid the recession. It could be. Now, in the bottom, I wanted also to put a very impactful graph, which is the middle class purchasing power decline here in the US. You can see how it's actually going down. What it means is that prices are going up, but the wages, the capacity of saving money, the capacity of purchasing new goods is actually declining. There's a gap of prices going up, but wages actually not adapting as quickly. If we go into supply chain, the obvious ones, nearshoring, retaliation, components from multiple countries is going to be a big challenge. And then, of course, the logistical bottlenecks, like container ports, shipping rates, etc. There are 2 examples that I wanted to put here of how this actually works. Things are not made only in one country. Things are made from multiple components. Just to put it in context, an iPhone comes the components from more than 43 countries. Of course, then it gets assembled, in China, Taiwan, and India, most of them in those 3 countries. But all the components are more than 43 countries. Imagine all these tariffs applying to all this shipping and to all these, tariffs that are going to be impacting the different countries' taxation that are going to be adapting right now to what's happening in the US. The second example that I wanted to share with you is that General Motors is right now redesigning their whole supply chain because there are 20 to 30 countries that the components actually to assemble a car from General Motors are actually needed. 30% of the cars that are sold in the United States today are assembled in Canada and Mexico. This is one of the reasons why the tariffs from Canada and Mexico has not been communicated yet, because the nearshoring that has been happening since COVID, especially in Mexico and in Canada, has been so huge that this could have a tremendous effect to Fortune 500 companies. So at the end, the sum up is that the capex and the return on investment are going to be a challenge in the ways of delays, shift production from one country to another one, and the redesign not only of the products and the services, but the supply chains. If we go into tech advancements, what's happening with AI and automation disruption, it's being huge. There's basically a big battle right now before we talk about AI on data. Just to put it in context, worldwide data, 17.5% of all the worldwide data is generated from the US, but 27.8% is already generated from China. This is huge. Now, we talk about AI and race. Of course, there are 2 big players here. That is, United States versus China. And we're talking about computing, talent, money, the budgets, but also resources and the open, close, type of mindset for the models. But what's coming is not only the generative AI, but what is already talking about everybody working on is agentic AI. And agentic AI is going to very quickly arrive into also the conversation of artificial general intelligence, AGI. If you hear Dario Amodei, which is one of the co-founders and the CEO of Anthropic, he says that, okay, for me, artificial general intelligence is the level of a Nobel Prize in the different modalities. And when he gets asked about when he thinks we're going to actually reach artificial general intelligence, he says that seeing the data from the last 3 years, it wouldn't be crazy to say that it's going to happen in 2026, 2027. If you hear Sam Altman and many other ones that are working in the industry, it's starting to get closer to that year. We'll see. But that's what they are already predicting. Now, what is interesting here on AI is that graph that you see there of features, use cases, and workflows. For many years, we were talking about features. No? What is the backlog of the different features that we want in our apps, in our services, in our businesses, and how to keep improving? Very quickly, that evolved into use cases, the before, the during, and the after, the physical and the digital touch points of the experiences. And now we are getting closer into the workflows. And when we get closer into the workflows, we're talking about how people, teams, different departments in organizations are actually working. Why this is important? Because the intelligence, the logic of the business, it's actually moving from ERPs, type of SaaS type of solutions. It's actually moving, thanks to Agentic AI and generative AI, it's actually moving to empower and augment actually the teams. So at the end, what we're going to be seeing with agents is that the companies, the teams are going to be developing their own agents, but actually also they're going to be libraries of thousands and thousands and thousands of agents that you're going to be able actually to hire, right? So the change here is that the CTO is actually becoming kind of like a human resources type of recruitment force inside of the organization, where they're going to actually be, designing and using their own agents, but also hiding them from the outside of the company. And we're talking about thousands. When we're talking about this also, it's at the beginning, agents are going to be expensive. Like OpenAI is already offering agents that are PhD level type of intelligence for $20,000 per month, which might sound like a lot of money, but when you actually move the logic, to the teams, and you can augment your existing team members, and in some cases you can actually augment certain tasks, certain business logic that otherwise it will require many, many, many hands that right now it doesn't, then actually return on investment is going to come very quick in the numbers. So if we put this, what is going to be the impact, just to put it a little bit also in the dimension, International Monetary Fund is already talking that, the IMF, sorry, it's talking about that it is going to affect around 40% of all the jobs. So reskilling and upskilling is going to be very crucial for all of us. And then automate around 300 million jobs is what Goldman Sachs is already putting in dimension. And Dario Amodei talks that the biggest impact is going to be in software development. It's not like it's going to replace all the software developers, but it's going to have a huge, huge impact there. Design will be affected. Probably design on the intersection of physical and digital, it will take longer, but it's going to touch all for sure. No? Now, if we see what's happening in the left bottom, is that talking back to the point of data, this is crazy. It's like, in the Fortune 500 companies in the US, more than close to 70% of the companies, 90% actually have unstructured data. That means that data can actually not be used to make all the cross of data sets that they actually wanted and to make actually decisions. It means that they are operating actually a billion and trillion dollar type of companies with 10% of the data being structured. So imagine with AI tools, the capacity of incremental actually productivity that this actually has is humongous. Right? That's why there's so much investment. Also because strategically, geopolitically, not US nor China can actually be behind in this arms race, like it happened with nuclear war in the past. So one thing that I wanted to talk in the right side in the top is that there's this intersection also not only of AI, but also of robotics. And in robotics, as Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, is talking, there are three big opportunities that communicated in the CES of this year in Las Vegas. The first one is robotaxis, where we see Waymo from Google, no, Beidou, AutoX, and Tesla, and many other ones, but also drones like air, land, water, or even space, right? And then we are seeing humanoid robots. You can see there some of the examples of humanoid robots. Why I wanted to talk about this is because this intersection of AI and robotics is really going to have a huge impact. We're going to feel it first in the distribution centers of Amazon's, etc. But very soon it will start actually to be not only B2B, it will be B2B2C. When I see soon, of course, it's going to be gradually and it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. It's not going to be this year, it's going to be tomorrow. But we're going to actually see that already happening in factories where everything is actually getting completely automated. What I wanted to talk about this is that China is ahead in robotics by 6 to 8 years, more or less. And the reason why is that they have been actually building a supply chain in the last 20 years. You see, all the electric cars that are coming, like, from companies like BYD, etc., and the chains that they are actually doing into robotaxis and autonomous driving and everything is they are cheaper, they have many more features, and they are able to actually manufacture them even faster than anybody else. So that's the 20-year supply chain that they have actually been building. Just to put it in context, Boston Dynamics that got acquired by Hyundai and that we have all seen, Atlas, their robot, like doing flips and park tour and everything. They also manufactured this first quadruped robot that it was called a Spot, the yellow one that you see there. Spot today is sold for $75,000. Unitree, that is a company founded by 30 years old guy in 2016, in 9 years has already surpassed Boston Dynamics in the way of not only production but functionality, and it sells Unitree robot, that one that you see there, for $2,700. So this is important on the robotics and automation advantage that China actually has ahead of the US and the rest of the world. Now, this together AI and together with everything that I'm talking about robotics that is going to change the way goods are being produced and distributed actually around the world. This is going to generate two big crises that are important to leverage as a society, that are big opportunities, but we need to know them and to manage them. The first one is a trust crisis in the way that already 50% of the content in internet is being generated by AI. So there's going to be a growing and trusting feeling of if the content that you are actually seeing has been recommended by an algorithm or if it has been actually generated by AI or by a human being. I truly believe that this is a huge opportunity for brands that can actually curate and have a point of view and curate actually a message coming from humans to humans. I also believe there is a huge opportunity for media companies. And that's why we are seeing also, for example, like the podcast, like, going up in this longer format of going over, in some cases, over 90 minutes. Because it's people talking with people and we are all learning from it. And the TV, the cable TV with advertisements and with the 20, 30-minute type of like slots is not going to fly anymore. So I think there's a huge opportunities happening there, but there's a trust issue of what you are actually sharing is something that has actually been put on your wall in the top of your feed in social media by an algorithm, and that's what you're actually sharing and talking about with others, if it's or not a deep fake, etc. So there's a trust crisis there that is already happening. The second one, I think, is going to take a little bit longer, but it's coming. That is this intersection of AI and robotics, when robotics are actually starting to be more massive. Just to put it in context, the expectation is that there's going to be 2 to 3 humanoid robots per person. The cost of each robot is going to be around $10,000. That means that what we used to spend buying a car of $30,000, it means that we could be in 5-10 years have the capability of having 2-3 of these robots. One could be helping us with our aging parents, with our children, buying groceries, doing errands. and two of them could be an extension of us professionally. Now, that's average. Imagine people that have the capacity to have 100, 1,000 of these. No? You start to open the conversation about taxation based on productivity, et cetera, universal basic income, et cetera, et cetera. So the purpose crisis is because at the end, the question of what I'm going to be doing with my life. Are we all going to go back, to the countryside and plant tomatoes and potatoes? Maybe. That's kind of like, the Viktor Frankl book, no, of the man in search of meaning, no. So it's an important also crisis to take into account, and the opportunities that this would actually bring, because I think we're going to see it in our lifetime. Just to put it in context of Unit 3 humanoid robot, today this is Unit 3 G1. Again, it's going to be between $10,000, $15,000. You can see here like the type of movement that already have, and the different updates that they're doing on weekly basis. So it's able actually to run in different types of terrain. It's the fastest humanoid robot right now. It's faster than actually a human, for example, running. And in the Moon Year celebration of China in the public TV this year, there were hundreds of them dancing and doing the choreography with human dancers, and they did actually a pretty good job. You can see it here running. Now, the crazy thing is that in the US, you can already buy the Unit 3 Go 2 robot that I just showed you, and you can get it in 4 to 5 weeks. Last week it was 2 to 3 weeks, but the demand is actually growing, so it's getting slower. You can actually buy it in Amazon. So this is pretty crazy with leader technology, and you can imagine. Now, on cybersecurity, just to accelerate a little bit here, a lot of data points. Basically, there's a growing number of attacks with cyber security, of course, with the use of generative AI. Nothing new there. But we're talking about 1.7 billion data breach notices only in the United States last year. We're talking that this impacted more than 1,351 million individuals. And the average data breach cost is actually going up, is the highest in record from last year. That is $4.8 million. This is when we talk about like ransomware, and they ask you actually for money in order to actually reactivate your servers as a company and don't lose all the data. There's already happening with agentic AI type of startups like Relia Quest has just raised $500 million because of the approach of how to tackle AI's, agentic AI security for cyber breaches. No? Now, let's jump into another note. Talking about social and workforce, as we were commenting before, the biggest challenge and the largest, I would say, like good opportunity is about the difference that we have in generations. Now, if you see what is the average age of a successful entrepreneur, it's actually 45 years old, and it's actually going up. Like last year, it was like 43, 42, it was 40, 41. I mean, like you can see how every year is actually going up. Why is this happening? Well, it's happening because, like the old workers right now is 55 plus years old, and is the fastest actually growing. So this is important. Another aspect that I wanted also to share is talent war right now. We talk a lot about the arms race of AI, but the arms race is really about talent. If you see what is the talent that China is generating, for example, in Chinese graduating engineers, we're talking about 1.5 million per year versus 123,000 in the United States. Now, here's the fun question. What is the percentage of Chinese engineers graduating in the US that are part of that group? Well, it's 37% of the engineers that graduate in the United States are actually from Chinese origin. So this is a very important fact. If you see, for example, DeepSeek, actually the founders studied in the United States. They learn about actually AI generative models actually in the United States. So this is important. We are really talking about talent. And when we talk about talent, It's going to be a challenge to really do the reskilling and the upskilling when we have Generation X, Millennials, Gen Y, the generations, the Centennials, and then the Generation Alpha that are going to come very soon also to the workplace. Because what they look for in life and what they are actually seeking at work, it's not exactly the same. So we are hearing more and more, like, Generation Z, Centennials, that after working for a few months, they raise the hand and they said, I'm burned out. I'm going to actually travel around the world for 9 months and I will come back or not. And I might actually search for another job or I might do something different. When we talk about differences, as you can see, the percentages I was putting there is that Generation X, which I'm part of, as many of you also connected today, is the highest actually of any generation as startup founders. That's why also it correlates with the average age that is actually going up. Millennials is 36% exhibit entrepreneurial spirit, and centennials, it goes down to 29%. When they are asked about what they want to do, if it's not to become an entrepreneur, they want to actually have a creator role as a career preference. 84% of them prefer to be actually influencers, YouTubers, etc., etc. So this is important because it's a big, as a company, when you have actually in your team different percentages and weights of these generations, how transversally we're going to be able actually to do the upskilling and the reskilling, upskilling and reskilling of everything that we just talked about, from what's happening with AI and the intersection actually of automation and robotics, no? If we go into geopolitical, there's a lot happening right now, but just to put it, the impact of the instability that both Ukraine and Gaza wars are actually creating has an impact in food, in energy, in sanctions, supply chain, of course, and the cost of living inflation. But there are three big things that are happening. The first one is there's a deglobalization and nearshoring that is actually being impacted. There's a record high defense race expanding. You can see there the three biggest ones, which is the US 916 million, for a billion, 471 approx in China. There's no clarity on how much, but that's the estimation of how much they're actually spending. And then European Union is skyrocketing right now in 326, probably going over 400 in 2025. And then the war rules are also changing in the way of what we were commenting before about the supply chains. It's not only about electric cars, it's also about the drones. There was this conversation that happened with the Pentagon here that is like, what will happen if China tries to invade, for example, Taiwan? Well, the war will not be fought as traditionally. There will be drone swarms that will actually be attacking, for example, or defending whatever they are put in mission. If you can see some of the images in the right, both Ukraine and Russia are using DJI drones from China in the work during these years, and they're even putting grenades, and the camera of the DJI robot has the capacity to detect not only the vehicle that they are targeting, but also if a soldier is from one side or the other. So this is already happening. Now, the reason why this is happening and is DJI drones is because they have been building actually a supply chain for the past 20 years, as we were commenting before, and proof of it is the record of 10,197 drones as a swarm flying at the same time that they have been doing the performance, kind of like the evolution of fireworks, where they are able actually to fly at night and create all sorts of different animations and forms. No, just to put it in context, the cost of a DJI drone is $135. An M1 tank is 4.3 million. F-35 is 109 million, and F-47, that is the new fighter, is over 300 million. So if you imagine if you are in a flying plane that it costs $300 million and you have a swarm actually of DJI drones that comes against you, all with a small bump into it, the war rules are going to be very, very different geopolitically. No? Now, environmentally, there's the climate change impact happening with the resource scarcity, urban resilience, net zero transmission. the just transition and the trust and transparency. I think the challenges here and the opportunities is that we need to go beyond greenwashing and reporting. Like if we analyze, for example, Fortune 500 companies, most of them, over 90% of them, are actually not meeting the commitments that they actually communicated. And January of 2025 has already been the warmest on record. So I think the big opportunity, challenge and opportunity is operationalize corporate purpose. With all this pressure that we have been seeing in the stock markets, everybody's going to be asking about what is the return on investment in everything that we have invested in the past 5, 10 years. So the opportunities here are how we integrate, for example, corporate purpose into business strategy and key decisions. How do we adopt sustainability as a driver of innovation and growth? How do we measure and communicate holistic impact, not just financial metrics? How do we align inclusive culture with corporate purpose? And then how do we collaborate with the public sector and anticipate regulation? No? And with this, I know that all this data and all these challenges and at the same time big opportunities might be a little bit overwhelmed, right? But I just wanted to put like an X-ray of where we are. And now I wanted to change more into, okay, but how we can use this as an opportunity? What is the innovation playbook that we need actually to apply in this type of situation and context? Well, first message that I want to share so we change a little bit the energy is that we are living actually in fascinating times. We are in the best times to be actually alive. Change is going to be the only constant for the next years. And we have already seen that, and we have actually thrived in uncertainty through COVID. We need to understand that automation, we're going to be actually automating so we can focus on what matters the most. We need to embrace actually these new tools, these new technologies in order to focus on what matters the most and have the largest, most positive impact possible. And when we talk about augmenting how, it's about how we learn, it's about how we create, it's about how we collaborate, it's about how we add value to clients, to people, to society, to our communities. And we all need to understand that we are all part, everyone here, everybody that we know is going to be part of this transformation. All of us is going to impact us, even if we try to hide. It's like what happened with internet when internet was actually starting in 1995. This is like that. It's going to impact our lives in many different ways. It's in our hands to actually make it worth it, make it count. So getting a little bit more into the how. All companies right now and all of us, we are struggling with these challenges, but these three major opportunities. These are three very big things. The first one is how do we anticipate change? Our capacity to stay ahead, to reskill, to upskill, to learn, to test, don't have fear. This is the wild, wild west. Let's go there, let's learn, let's fast evolve, let's test all these new technologies, and let's understand that this uncertainty is going to stay here with us, and it is okay. The second one is that we need to scale innovation. In order to scale impact of innovation, we need actually to create and update our existing or create new pipelines of innovation. That means that we need to create what to do in the short term, mid-term, and longer term when we're talking about products, when we're talking about services, and when we're talking about new business models. And the third one is about execution gap. We need to have a test and learn mindset. We know that in the past years with design thinking, with agile, with all, lean startup, with all these things, we have been talking about this, but has never been at the speed that we're going to actually feel it right now, where, like AI models are evolving every week. So this is about same philosophy, but a much faster pace. So we need to be measuring and learning so we are able to iterate, to pivot, and to scale impact fast. Now, I have created this kind of like model of what will be the levers to innovate and compete, especially with what's happening with China, that speed, that capacity of adaptability. If China competes in a scale and a speed, as we are commenting, the US or rest of the world could be competing in imagination, resilience, and human-centered design. So for me, my take on this that we are talking is human-centered design should be in the center. There are these four levels, which is policy, business models, technology, and talent, as we have been talking. And there are we have to have this mindset that is solution agnostic and that we have to be holistic. When we say solution agnostic, it means that we fall in love with the problems, with the challenges, not so much with the solution, with the features, with the possibilities of technology. No, about humans, how these add value in people's actually lives. And when we talk about holistically, is that we understand holistically all the different stakeholders that we have the privilege of serving. You see there in a smaller, in white, the ecosystems that are important to activate. Startups, small, medium enterprises, which represent in the US 99% of the economy, corporations, economy, and education. And then the capabilities, which is the capacity of speed, of scale, of resilience, of imagination. If we want to anticipate this great tool, which is, of course, the strategic future foresight, which is like Simon Sinek also talks about, right? Start with the why, the purpose and the vision, understanding, in the next 5 to 10 years, what are kind of like the places where we want to be as professionals, as people, as teams, as companies. This is crucial. And then how to get there. Long-term, mid-term, and short-term, products, services, and new business models or evolution of the existing ones. And then third, where do we start? What are kind of like the very clearly quick wins that we want actually to get into? And this is important because if we do it from the future back engineer to the present, we can actually have an edge and a point of view. I always explain here that it's very funny that a lot of the companies that we talk to and that we work with are all the time very informed about what's happening in Silicon Valley, for example, or even in China today, no? All the innovations of technology, etc. What we don't understand sometimes is that we are making decisions. Before it was like doing a business plan for the next 1, 2, 3 years. Now we are seeing that the decisions are very reactive or reactionary for what has happened in the last quarter. But if you see these companies that are leading actually the way, they have cycles of innovation, like for example, Amazon or like for example, Google, that are 7, 8, 10 years. So you have to have that capacity of not only innovating and trying to react of everything that is cool in the market and the latest thing in the short term. You need to be able to go beyond that. And in order to scale that impact, I really like the model that Sergey being created in Google. This kind of like an adaptation of that philosophy, which is he did a mathematical model. When Eric Schmidt joined actually Google, he was amazed on the mathematical model that Sergey Brin has actually created that was explaining mathematically why companies actually disappear. And the opportunity here was to see what was actually the weight that resources, time, budget-wise, you could actually put in order to avoid that you have a situation like what happened to Kodak or to Blockbusters, no? And is this 70% core, 20% adjacent, and 10% disruptive? Again, time, people, budget, energy that you actually put on this. 70% core for them is the search engine. 20% adjacent is adjacent services, like for example, Gmail or Google Maps started there, okay? Or acquisitions like YouTube that they also acquire. 10% disruptive is where they have Waymo or where they have, for example, right now, Calico, that is California Life Company. Waymo started there and is going to move into adjacent, and from adjacent is actually going to end up connecting with the core, right? But this is important. Waymo, in the last 10 years, everybody was laughing why Google is actually getting into autonomous driving and, robotaxis, etc. It's not their core business, right? But through time, they have actually surpassed General Motors, have surpassed even Tesla, and is actually has surpassed Uber that was actually leading part of that way. So it's a very interesting way of not only understanding the short, mid, and longer term, but more about resources and how you can actually scale and measure impacts. We should all even at the personal level, be working on what is our core, our adjacent, and our disruptive, not only on the core. Because any person or any company, any team that is going actually to be working with this type of framework is always going to be more productive through time than you. And when we talk about execution, just starting to end the conversation here, is about a strategic design levers, as we were saying, that can help to propel growth. I have put here in each of the 5 vectors that are creating this uncertainty and that are interconnected, what are kind of like some of the things that we know that, for example, other countries, a part of China that is already doing a lot of these things, needs to actually be putting in motion and catch up in a lot of them. In the bottom, I put there, which I think is interesting, what strategic design levers can actually help to put this in motion or put this as action items. The first one for economic factors is about value proposition design and cost-effective innovation. We're going to hear a lot about ROI, as we were commenting before, and efficiencies. Technologically advances, it's about anticipatory design, like future scenarios, service design, ethical interfaces. Social and workforce, when I talk about ethical interfaces, about like, for example, responsive AI, etc. Social and workforce, inclusive design, like the fast aging population, for example, in financial services, is an issue. Like my mother the other day, we went to a bank a branch in Madrid, and the bank branch now has become a work cafe. And she freaked out because, like, I want to talk to Almudena. Where is Almudena? She has been managing, all my accounts, and everybody was asking her, "Do you need free Wi-Fi? Do you want a coffee? Do you want an orange juice?" And it's like, "No, I want to see Almudena and talk about certain questions that I have." No, so I think inclusive design is an adaptive design for the different generations is a huge opportunity, definitely. And then reselling UX, community co-creation, etc. How do we serve all the stakeholders? Huge opportunity. Geopolitically, we're talking about design for trust, as we were talking, especially that trust crisis. A speculative design, what are other possibilities? And supply chain transparency. Nobody is going to be able to fix everything by themselves, but they're going to actually have to, it's a huge opportunity of how to integrate with other supply chains, and the waste from one supply chain can become actually a resource that you can actually use in order to create a new product or a new byproduct. Like we are working, for example, with some of our clients in that way, that you can get, for example, with Converse, you can get actually, like the skin of certain fruits, and you can turn it into plant-based leather, so you don't need to be killing, for example, cows. So this type of mentality of transparency, not only with the capacity of creating efficiencies, integrating supply chains and coalitions, but also the transparency to tell this story, this important story actually, and the positive impact to consumers and to the different stakeholders that you collaborate with. And then on environmental issues, we're talking about circular design, generative, and not only recycling, as we talk, and then climate positive product systems and the digital trust features. As you can see, I keep talking about trust a lot. So I believe that we are in an era where design is back. We say that in Propelland, our obsession nowadays more than ever is that we need to make design that matters. And thank you everyone for the time. I know there's a lot of information in very, very short period of time. You have here my email if you want to drop me a line, a question. We have some minutes now for a Q&A that I will love to hear from you, and keep evolving together in these changing times that we are part of. Thank you so much.
Do you have back to back, or can we extend for 10 minutes for questions? Because if
I can stay, don't worry. Yes.
Okay, excellent. So first of all, thank you so much. When I listen to an audiobook, I play it 1.5 times so I can listen to more books in the same time. When I listen to you, I would have to listen in 0.5 times just to align my brain with your brain. It's insane. And thank you so much for this avalanche of information. I have so many questions, but this is also for you guys. So if you have a question, raise your hand or put the question in the chat and I can read it for you if you don't want to pose it. I see Selma, I think, raised her question first. So let's just jump right into this and go ahead. Hi. Hi.
Buenos dias. Thank you very much for your presentation. A lot of information, definitely to be. What I would like to know is how do you keep up with the changes that is going on? So you're presenting yourself and your company as being at the top of these changes, but how do you keep up with everything that is kept happening around?
I think we all are addictive to curiosity. Since we were kids, that's probably why we are kind of like a group of outliers that we have actually come together. So different ways. One is we have the privilege of working from all around the world with very different type of companies, from the largest corporations, Fortune 500 type of companies, but also we are part of the new ventures type of initiatives that they are part of, that we are learning from, startups that they are investing in, or even startups that, we are part of. So yes, as clients, we're learning together. They are learning with us. We're learning from them. So that's one area for sure. The second one is the curiosity. We try to foster curiosity. You know that there are two things that you need to water every day as you age. One is curiosity, and the second one is the rebel spirit that we all have, and that when we age, it kind of like decline through time. So I'm a compulsive, for example, reader, like everybody in the team. Listen all sorts of crazy podcasts, not only the ones that have the same point of view that I have, or the same passions, but actually the opposite, because you learn actually a lot from there. So, for example, great books regarding this talk today, highly recommendable is Ray Dalio, The Changing World Order. That's a must read. The second one that I would recommend that is crazy is I normally read like 6, 7 books at the same time, like like jumping from one to another. But the other one that I would recommend is 2030 from Mauro Guillén. He's a PhD. He's from Spain. He's a PhD a professor in economics in Wharton School. And the 2030 book that he has written is about the trends and actually how China has been, perpetuating a lot of the things that we have been actually talking, and the long-term vision that they actually have, and the innovation. The message basically is like, don't look only to Silicon Valley and the US, which of course keep doing, but also go and learn also from what's happening actually in China, because it's part of the equation. And we all need to be actually learning, especially in Europe, which that I'm a little bit critic being a European, that it feels that in Europe we are kind of like regulating what everybody else is advancing on, but not necessarily actually proactively leading the way. Again, I think it's a huge opportunity, because as humanists, we will end up being that part of the world where, Chinese or Americans can actually come and have a different point of view to enrich. I believe that diversity is very, very important. But I think on, like the AI Act, etc., we have been regulating things that have already gotten obsolete, because things are moving so quickly actually in AI, that I think the European Union should also be learning not only from what happens right now in the US, but also in China. And the other things that we do is I'm also a personal investor in early startups. So have invested in early stage investment funds. I'm also a mentor in Endeavor, which that is a huge worldwide also network. So I try to get involved in everything that I can actually learn from, of what's actually happening. No, latest investment was last week in a AI startup that wants to reinvent, for example, Gmail using agentic and generative AI. So, and in some cases, we even co-invest in some of these initiatives from Propelland. So we maintain curiosity every day, and we try to read and especially test everything that we can. Again, the biggest knowledge that we have built is actually the long list of mistakes that we have done tinkering and burning stuff, as you have seen, both physically and digitally. But I will say that mainly mentally. There's so many things that we thought were going to go in a certain way and have gone completely in different ways. So I think it's very important that Don't try to reinforce what you already know. Go for the opposite points of view. I think that's where probably you're going to maintain yours. You're going to enrich it, but you're going to learn and think and see things in different ways that otherwise you're going to keep reinforcing what you already know.
Before we move
Great.
on to Mariam, a quick housekeeping. Raise your hands. I'll invite you to the hot seat, as you can see, for the question and the conversation with Hugo. For the purpose of bringing as much content in as possible, keep your questions short, and Hugo, keep your answers short, so we can rotate a little more. Mariam.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hugo. This is really a conversation that I think everyone should be having because we live in a transitional period right now, let's call it. And I'm going really deep into the mental health tech space. And a topic that always comes up is AI therapists, how people are using AI as their therapist. And you've spoken about the trust crisis, right? Because there'd be less human to human interaction and more AI generated content. But don't you think because we're becoming more and more familiar with AI, the trust in AI will grow and we'll trust AI the same way we trust other people, or we might even grow emotionally attached to it. Do you see that happening?
For sure, Miriam, I think you raise a super valid point. The question, and that's why I wanted to talk about the intergenerational challenge, is that the answer is yes, probably for your generation is going to be much easier. For my mother's, it's going to be a huge barrier. If my mother has an issue talking to a person in a bank that is offering free Wi-Fi, and an orange juice and a coffee, because the space has changed, and now all the interactions needs to be done through an ATM machine that has actually been designed for millennials and Gen Zs, not for a 80-year-old person. It's an issue. So for the generation of my mother, or for even some of the Gen X that are more, not my case, but some might actually be more, not so open to change and to new things, might be a higher barrier for some generations than from others. Maybe for the alphas and for the centennials, and for most of the millennials will not be, but for a period of time, let's say 20, 30 years, is going to be very varied. So certain solutions are not going to fly to everybody. So AI therapists should be very adaptive to the age of the patient, because the needs, the interaction, the moment that they are actually vital moment that they are actually in life, the type of challenges, the type of problems that they actually have are very, very, very different. Like, I don't know, like I have not been able, for example, to some members of my, like some aunts and some uncles that I have that are kind of like aging, and they're fearful of dying, no, because they have lost their parents. Recently in COVID, we lost several members in the family, no, and you talk to them and it's like, hey, you should go to a therapist, and they have this barrier, generational barrier, that it's kind of like going to a therapist is like a weakness, and that they don't want to recognize that they need help. So I think this for sure an opportunity. I will not say yes or no at all. I'm saying that it should be adaptive. And a lot of the solutions that I have been seeing, especially after COVID for mental health, has been targeting probably younger people and not so much older. If you ask me, I think the biggest opportunity is going to be in the older generations, because they are the ones that are actually going to have the biggest fears, and they have actually the largest budgets.
Thank you.
You're very
I'm,
welcome.
I'm taking it for now until I see a hand again. I have two questions. One, as I am excited about exponential change, as you know, I've been working with Singularity, following the work for 10 years now, looking into the dynamics of exponential change. And Europe is very strong in the automotive industry. And we have the generation of the automotive industry, which was an industry of mechanics. They were building cars, and then that was replaced by data companies who built computers and mounted four wheels on a computer. And now we see the next generation of cars, and that will be robots with wheels. And that will probably be run by mechatronics companies. So, and that the first one was 100 years, the second one was 20 years, and we will see how this is going. in Europe, we have these mechanics, and the car companies are the biggest companies or one of the biggest industries in Europe. And what's happening right now, I feel like actually this could be a chance for Europe to attract talent, to attract scientists, to attract visions. But in this idea of a 20 years contract, planning 20 years, or 5 years as China's been doing for the last 60 years, where is Europe? What's your take? Where, I mean, Europe, you didn't mention Europe a lot in your presentation. And where do you see today, and what do you see as an opportunity that's realistic?
It's a tough question, Nikki. You know that I'm part of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce of Silicon Valley now for almost 5 years, and I participate also the one here in New York. So every time that there's a mission of government or companies that come from Spain, I share a lot of this. We have like a Q&A, and I share a little bit the point of view. I think Europe needs to change the short-term mindset that we have. Like what has happened to Germany, it's a big drama. Volkswagen closing two of the factories and being completely wiped out of the EV game in the car industry by China is not something that was not being seen. The same is happening here in the US, by the way, by other very large incumbent companies, like, for example, Intel being completely wiped out by NVIDIA. So that has always happened in the market. No, I mean, like very established large corporations are very slow to react to new players. No, the thing is that China, it's playing a game of in the next 50 years. I would say that you are now based in Dubai. I was having this conversation the other day with some investors here in New York. That was very interesting. It's like, look, to sum it up, they were telling me US is focused 100% right now in efficiency, because if they don't, they're going to go bankrupt because everything that we have talked today. Okay, understandable. Numbers speak, right? Second one is like China. It's right now where the money and the big projects are actually going into, because it's kind of like the partner that you want to. So the largest port that is being built right now in the world in Africa, it's a Chinese investment. No? And if you see BYD, they're even creating their own boats to transport the cars. So this is pretty insane. But the other thing, now that you're living based in Dubai, that they were telling me is that the Middle East is actually where the big questions right now are being asked and reimagined. So there's enough money and enough hunger, appetite, curiosity for actually redefining what cities should actually be. What are the services? What is the transportation? What is the supply chain? What is everything? So it's a very interesting conversation. And when they were talking about Europe, they were saying that Europe should actually, and I completely agree, not look so much in the short term. I think the weight of Europe is that a lot of the countries have been empires in the past, and we have this nostalgia that we were great in the past, and that we already made it, that it's all money. We already did it. And what we don't understand is that China was a great empire in the past, also was a great country. And, and the United States is in a battle right now with China for supremacy, which it's a big thing. So how Europe can actually compete, I would say that needs to think beyond the short term. It's impossible that you are in the middle of what's happening in the US and in China and trying to copy and cut everything that you see in both ends for the next 3 months, which is what's happening. It feels like a rally car where you talk to people. A lot of it, I put you an example. We're talking that we're working with the same clients in Spain or in the US or in other parts of the world. Projects in Europe, same in Italy, that we have 4 clients. are like $75,000, $150,000. It's very hard that you actually, more than $100,000 right now needs the signature of the CEO. Like everybody, it needs to scale up in order to be approved to also many committees. So much hierarchy, so much bureaucracy. It's like crazy. It takes months and months and months. By the time that is going to get signed, the need has maybe disappeared. In the case of the US or in the case of China, that we have been doing with some of the clients in Hong Kong, Singapore, mainland China, etc., things are signed and approved like in days. Like, boom, online, signature here, NDA, proposal, yes or no, RFP. These are the 5 competitors. You get it, you don't get it. Like, boom, what is the local team that you're going to have? Send me the profile, send me. It goes and the ticket price in the case of the US, it can go 5 to 10 times the one that you have, for example, in Europe. So that short-term mentality, I think, is cutting our breath, to be honest. And then the second thing is, if we don't pay better, the US and China is going to keep doing great talent drainage. So most of the AI engineers that study in Europe, because they cannot maybe afford to study abroad in the US or elsewhere, ends up actually getting hired by US companies, and everybody tries to flee out of Europe because they can actually. Yesterday, I was working here with a friend that is from Argentina. He just ended working in Meta, now just moved to Madrid, to Spain, because his wife is working for Google. And he was telling me, like, dude, I'm interviewing for similar roles, and it's crazy. Like I was getting paid 5-7 times more in the US than what they are offering me for the same type of position in Spain. So at the end, talent. So it's like, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I will stay here for a couple of years, but I will probably have to go back to the US. So that's something that cannot happen, because if at the end Europe is only going to be a university, because people are going to come and travel, and see everything that is so beautiful, kind of like a great Disney World. But at the end, they're going to go back to China because the Chinese government gives you money to open your own startup, and it's going to subsidize whatever you need to do. And in the case of the United States, you have actually the highest and largest risk capital in the world, that they will give you if you have a nice idea, like this AI company of the latest age that I just ideated. They can give you up to $50 million, knowing that they can actually risk absolutely all the money that they're actually giving. But the idea is actually good. It's a meritocracy. That meritocracy in Europe has been a little bit like lost. We used to be like that, right? I mean, the Industrial Revolution, everything that has happened, all the revolutions that has happened in Europe. What do we need in order to go back to that curiosity and that rebel spirit of recognizing with a humble spirit that, okay, Europe will live great, but in order to catch up and to be competitive, we're going to have to do an effort. Do people in Europe want to do that effort?
A lot of food for thought. I'm marshal of the time. Thank you so much for this. We're traveling to Dubai tomorrow to meet Omar Al Mahout and see it's the week or 2 weeks after Ramadan. So Dubai has paced up back to their operational speed. What's happening over there, and to continue this world trip of inspiration. Thank you so much for opening it big. I enjoyed that session. I'm glad I recorded it. There's a lot to revisit and think. And I'm looking forward to see you again. Maybe you can make it to join us the sessions throughout the week. Otherwise, hopefully soon in the flesh again. Thank you everyone for joining, for being here, for asking good questions. And I'm looking forward to see you in 20 hours when we're in Dubai. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, everyone. A pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Big hug.